Welcome everybody to another episode of the Haunted Vermont podcast. My name is Paul Doski, and well, if you thought I was done with the thaw, you were certainly dead wrong. So anyway, introducing tonight's guest is Toby Poser, who played Alma in the short horror film The THAW. So Toby, welcome aboard.
Thanks, Paul. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, of course, it is what it is, and I'm glad you were able to make time, and we can chat about this lovely role that you ended up partaking and everything else. Because I mean, if I may say, I've watched it a few times now, and it's great to see the magic of the Vermont legend come to life in a different way versus being read. You know.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, I'm sure I'll learn a lot just talking with you, too. I love hearing other people's perceptions of stories that I'm involved in. And also, I got to say, Vermont is a cool state. I mean, we all know that. So I'm lucky to be here.
Right? Yeah, for sure. And so, Toby,
Yeah.
for those that may not know you per se, like, what else do you do besides like acting? I guess what I'm trying to say for short is like, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. I've been acting for, I was about to say centuries. I'm not that old, but I have been acting for a few decades. About 15 years ago, I also started making films. And I guess the kind of interesting thing about my filmmaking is I make them with my family. So, my husband and I and our two daughters, um, we just 15 years ago we decided to take off we bought an old RV and we took off for a year, hit the road, homeschooled the kids who were 6 and 11 at the time, and made our first film, and we just fell in love with it. A few years and four dramas later, we decided to move into making genre film. So now we've made several supernatural horror uh, films, and that's where we really felt at home. And we're generally called the Adams family, even though I'm the poser in the bunch. We're called the Adams family in that community, and our company is called Wonder Wheel Productions. And some of the films we've made are The Deeper You Dig, Hellbender, Where the Devil Roams, and now we just finished a film called Mother of Flies. So that's what I've been up to.
Wow, that's a lot of handiwork, if I may say. So I know you almost said centuries, so and I just want to make this like weird comment, which is basically like, so are we talking like, did you also figure out the man? How can I put this in a way? You found the I guess the experiment of like kind of like Elizabeth's battery, like you just get the virgin blood and bathe in it, and then you just live for eternal.
Yes. Who doesn't know that trick, Paul?
I don't know.
Actually, the
uh,
character I play, you know what? Maybe I'm still in character because the latest. So I do act in our films and most of them, and the character I play in the latest film, Mother of Flies, is a few centuries old. So and she's
ah,
found her way back on Earth. So I think I haven't sloughed off playing her yet.
well, that's a good backup story. No, I'm joking. Perfect. Yeah. So Mother of Flies.
That's the newest. Yeah, we just finished, so we're just starting to figure out where it will play at festivals and make its premiere and hopefully be distributed. Yeah.
Very nice. Very nice. I'll have to try to do my best to keep my eye on it. So that sounds interesting. Anyway, so all I can think of is Lord of Flies. But well, speaking of Lord of Flies, is it like something like that in a way? I guess.
Um, it's really, I guess, if you want to talk themes, it's a lot about life and death and regeneration and flies with this, having laying eggs, becoming maggots, turning into flies are really fascinating creatures. We've kind of touched on them before in our work because we just love the kind of back and forth between life and death. And we live like many people from Vermont. We live very close to nature, and so we're fascinated by um, just the cycle of life and death, whether it's the seasons or animals we hear dying in our backyard, or waiting for the daffodils to pop up, which they are now. It's a big theme in our work, and so flies. We thought that it was cool to even put that in the title.
Love it. Yeah, anything involving nature is always a good thing, especially nowadays. We kind of
Yeah.
need people to understand that there's specific animals that without them, then we're all going down. Let's just put it that way.
Amen. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. There's definitely an ecosystem needed there, so that's for sure. Uh, so anyway, Toby, to kind of before jumping into your role here, but beforehand, when like Sean or Sarah reached out to you, basically, did you know the legend beforehand about Vermont's frozen folk?
I did not. I did not know. Listen, and can I tell you a quick story about um, when I was on set? I picked up a book, and
Hmm.
little did I know that the story was in the book. And I wish I remembered the name of it now, of the book. And I think that's where Sarah had learned about this legend as well. So in a way, I heard about it when I was being cast for it, but then actually being on set, embodying one of the characters in it, reading about it was extra special and kind of eerie. Um, so I got to kind of discover it twice.
Hmm. Um, I don't know if this would help jog your memory, but would the book be entitled "Winter in Vermont" by Charles Edward Crane?
That's got to be it. Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you. I'm
yeah,
writing that
because
down.
yeah, that is probably the first book that has ever like spoke about it before it took off everywhere else, I guess. So yeah, so when you said book, I was like, I wonder if you mean this one. So because there's a few others, but I mean, like I was saying, like it all depends on if you've seen the book cover or not as
I'm
well.
pretty sure that's it. And it's such a cool bit of lore. I mean, it's kind of beautiful. And I remember when I was reading it, feeling like even if snow could, if words could turn into snow, it felt cold and isolated, and there was a simplicity and cleanness to the way it was written that it was really special.
Right. Yeah, the fact too that he goes into like how somebody was invited to go even watch it happen and write it down for a log and then get re-invited back when it came to springtime just to watch them thaw out and basically come back to livelihood. I guess it's like wow, like I mean, usually when you hear something like that, it's like, well, is that fiction or is it not fiction? It's supposedly somebody witnessed it, so it's like, But then, when you hear like there was supposed to be a journal or whatever, but then, it's like, well, what happened to the journal? So yeah.
Yeah, and Paul also, yeah, there was such a simplicity to how it was written. It was almost like they were talking about, well, this is when you should, plant your seeds under this kind of moon, and when the rabbit leaves its hole, that's a good time to plant blah blah blah. It was uncanny how it was just so matter of fact that it was brilliant and super even creepier. I don't know
Right.
if it was meant to be creepy, but it was because it was so matter of fact. It was beautiful.
Oh, I think it's in a way it is creepy because it's like, you know, you're basically uh putting your older folks, like I guess, in a coma and almost like in a paralyzed state, and then you got to trust that the board that you're building with the straw and hay and these like really thin cloth just basically just help protect the body that you are doing this to throughout the rest of the winter month. And you got to hope that there's no predator that decides that they just want to, just break it open and stuff like
Oh
that.
man.
Besides the atmosphere as well, or yeah, atmosphere. I'll just leave it as that. The climate change. Yeah,
Yeah, it's pretty harrowing.
exactly. Yeah. Well, I hope that's the book that you possibly were talking about. If not, there. I know there's a few others that mentioned it, but if it's an old book, then that must be the one.
I'm positive that you nailed it. That's it. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, it's always fun too because like I'll say this to everybody just because sometimes they haven't heard it too, which is like depending on where in Vermont, like if you ask people if they've heard this legend, there's gonna be folks that say yes, I know the legend. I'm tired of hearing it. It's overrated. And then you got people like you and a couple other people too that have never heard the legend, and it's like, well, I mean, it's like, well, how can you? Because sometimes it's not really, it's not popular out there. Like you probably wouldn't have known about it either if it wasn't for not only like Sean and Sarah reaching out to you, but since they had a book to kind of say, hey, this is the story kind of thing. I mean, how else would you have found it? Especially in the book that it was actually in, Winter in Vermont. If you really, really dive into that book more, like if you do find yourself a copy, like when you get to that chapter about the hibernation of the people or whatever, it's like, wow, like this is really like the most randomest part probably throughout this entire book.
I'll bet. I wish now that then that you've given me the title, I'm going to keep an eye out for it because I like. I mean, it was a beautiful book, and I that's the only thing I'd read. That was what was so weird that I just kind of put my finger in the book and opened it and started reading, and lo and behold, this is what they're talking about.
Exactly. So yeah, so Toby, you know, which dive into the work of the Saw. Like, so how did you end up meeting Sean and Sarah to end up getting the role to be as Alma, and then kind of take us into the journey.
Yeah, so our very first no, maybe it was yeah, it was our first genre film called The Deeper You Dig, and it was playing at a festival called Fantastic Fest in Austin, Texas. And um our feature film was preceded by Sean and Sarah's a short film called The Water Horse, which is a really beautiful film. These guys are so talented. So that's how we got to meet because we screened together at this really awesome festival down in Texas. And we stayed in touch. They eventually introduced me to Emily, um, who I think they had met through the festival circuit as well. Um, and that was an incredible. They had just introduced us, thinking, I think you guys would hit it off. And then when we got cast in the Thaw and we drove up together, nice because we're both upstate New Yorkers, it just cemented our friendship, um, Emily's and mine. And then Sean and Sarah, having known them as directors, um, me being a director, they're being directors, and then working under them as an actor, it was just the most beautiful culmination. It's just so cool when you know people, you love their work, and suddenly you find yourself in it, and you get to see what it's like actually being like in the blood. The circulation of their film work, actually shooting, is such a privilege, and that's how it happened.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, Emily did mention that you and her kind of drove down together, and how did she word it? And when I was chatting with her, it was like basically a way to form a bond since she was going to be playing the daughter and you the mother. So it was like a great way to find that connection, almost like in a way like a family connection. I think is how she worded it.
It was. It really was. And wow, what a Renaissance woman. She just does everything. And she too, as works with her husband. So we have a lot in common, but I have such respect for her um, from all of those angles. She's a tremendous actor. She's a really great writer and director. She's also just one of the loveliest, most generous human beings. She's super cool.
Yeah, I had a great time talking with her, and she sounded like she had a lot of fun with doing her role as well. Which, speaking of roles, so when it came down to Alma, Toby, I mean, obviously you being a mother figure, sounds like it's like not really going to be hard for you at all. So I guess when it did come down to like maybe some of the stuff for the song, maybe not because of your character, but did you happen to have like any type of challenges where maybe it was mentally, maybe just physical? Because, like I said, I mean, you were a mother, you're obviously a mom, and stuff like that. So, I mean, was there any type of difficulties or challenges that you had?
It's funny. I think the hardest thing um, was being a mother from a century ago, let's say, uh, back to the century old theme. But because I'm a very like physical woman, I'm athletic. A lot of the roles I play are demanding physically, and almost a gentler soul. And she fits into more of a let's say, a culturally appropriate um, uh, frame of motherhood, who does. I mean, I love to cook and everything, but that was when at the time when this film is meant to be placed. There are very specific roles for women, specific roles for men. So for me, it was almost hard. It was hardest for me to kind of shuffle off my modernity and think this is a woman who is tough in her way, but it's different from the kind of toughness I Toby would be. Like, in other words, I uh I'm just very physical, and I don't think Alma is as physical a woman as she doesn't. I don't think she was someone who would go out and do stunts and this and that. And so just trying to fit myself into that paradigm of mother from the late 1800s was challenging for me, but really fun. She's often in a weak physical state because after she takes this tea, she's hallucinating. She's very weak. It's almost like she's on the brink of death because she has to be able to hibernate for weeks. So that was the most challenging thing for me, was trying to accomplish her physicality.
Yeah, that completely makes sense. And as we learn from watching too, like not only did the husband wake up early, you sort of did too, and then you were kind of going back and forth with Emily, kind of like you did it wrong, and you should have followed. I think you put it as the recipe or something. It's been a couple like weeks now since I last saw it, but you kind of it almost seems like you were second guessing the way it was made almost without um maybe thinking, well, maybe like how did like Jeffrey thought it could have been just because of the warmer weather woke you up. So I mean that could be another reason why you guys quote unthawed early too.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I think it's the unexpected early thaw, which again ties into, those issues of climate change that I think Sarah and Sean are so smart at talking about. Um, yeah, there that's and it's neat the kind of focus they as writers and the characters put on, following that recipe to the T. And then when something like a few degrees are off, um all hell breaks loose, literally.
Indeed, that's why you know, oh man, I don't want to get this his name wrong. Sid the sheep ended up meeting his demise too. stuff. Yeah, or should have.
Benny or Rennie, yes,
Yeah,
is what they
Rennie.
call Sid. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Sid the Sheep played Rennie. Poor Rennie.
yeah.
Yeah, fun. um, I'm trying to remember too because like obviously Jeffrey had the fun of pretty much gulping the quote soup down per se and stuff like that. But I guess what was some of your did you happen to have the creative freedom that Jeffrey had too to maybe like try acting out something in a way that you guys could see if it worked versus like maybe what Sean and Sarah wanted per se. Like Jeffrey, like for example, like you know, he wanted to really gulp that soup down to kind of signify that he's really like starving. So I guess like I guess you know, did you have any creative freedom yourself?
Yeah, I think there definitely was creative freedom with them. I think with Alma, because I was so because I was really focused on trying to fit myself in her shoes, and her
Mhm.
shoes would be definitely probably tighter than the shoes I'm used to wearing. I wasn't pushing the boundaries of her too much, and I was really interested in their guidance. I really needed and wanted their guidance in making sure I was enacting her well. I mean, the biggest thing that felt so free is working with like most of my scenes. I had one really lovely scene down in the root cellar with Jeffrey, who was wonderful to work with in that dark, candlelit space. But most of my scenes, I guess, were more with Emily, and you really feel free with her because all you have to do is just kind of watch what she's doing and react to her. Um, but one thing that was really neat too was, and I imagine she talked about this as well, is that there was the art director, production designer on the set. Uh, I think she was the art director, but she definitely was there was a magic consultant, and her name was Deidre Catero, and she's a practicing witch. And so she was really cool because basically she had made these props. Like she made the book and she wrote in them and she like made little drawings, and it was so lovingly made. And she would kind of show us, this is how you should rip the herbs. This is how you grind them. This is how you use the mortar and pestle. There are a lot of things that didn't even make it into the final edit, but she was there to help us. And she also made the bathtub that I was in, to such specific, in such specific detail and in certain kinds of flowers that you don't even see in the black and white, the different colors of flowers. And she had oils, it smelled good, and the candlelight helps. So you have this woman who really knows what she's talking about, designing the atmosphere around you, and just the ambiance was just spot on. And the fact that Sarah and Sean went to you know that they focused on these details was such a pleasure for us as actors. Half the work is done, all the heavy lifting is done when someone puts you in that atmosphere, and all you have to do is just basically say the lines as true as you can for those characters.
Mm. Yeah, I think I kind of made a comment about like, you know, it would be interesting to see this film in color versus black and white. But as for the time period, I feel like the black and white works.
Oh yeah, I love it. I mean, the whole crew did so great, and the cinematographer, Demi Waldron, just is was such a like, you know uh, my she just really did such a great job uh with the camera. Yeah, the set design, the makeup, the person doing the makeup, her name was like, I forget her name, but the costumer, Jasmine Murray something, she did such an amazing job. Also, when you're walking around in heavy wools and it feels authentic, that really helps as well. And not to mention, I'm sure you know this, but the place that we shot it, Old Mansfield Homestead, I think it was called. Um, you know, one of the owners were Scott and Lyndall, and Scott Dorwart, I think is his last name. He built that to such absolute specific um, specs to how a house would have been made in the 1800s, using only the tools that they would use as well. So talk about authenticity. You're like in a living, breathing, um, you know, loving testimony to what those houses were like. It was incredible.
Right. Yeah, that's crazy. I know I think was mentioning that, and I mean like Emily too. She was mentioning just a little bit about that too. So it felt like it was like another world basically where you guys were staying. I think it's how she worded it.
Yeah, down to just the tiniest little things like the beds would feel a certain way because they were made to look like beds from the 1800s.
Right.
Rafters, all the floorboards, the windows. I mean, there was a modern bathroom in there, but everything else was extremely lovingly made to that late 19th century aesthetic.
Right. And I think I have her name right here. Jasmine Moray. Oh God, Bergquist.
Yeah, that was the costumer. Yeah, she
Yeah.
built those costumes, and they were gorgeous.
Yeah, perfect. I know you. It sounded like you were kind of like forgetting maybe the last part of her name, so
Yeah,
I just wanted
couldn't
to
remember that
clarify.
part.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that's who you meant. So yeah.
Yeah.
Um. So was there any other part, Toby, that I may be missing to talk about, or is there anything that I have not given you the chance to really talk about when it came to filming and acting in the spa?
No, I think I love your questions. I have one fun story to tell. That's just kind of neat. The guy who built the house, Scott, I was sitting in like on the stairwell, just kind of getting ready to do a scene, and I was looking at these pieces of rust, like rusty horseshoes hanging on a wall, and other pieces of rust. And I was like, man, this just makes me feel like I'm at home because where I live in the Catskill Mountains of upstate New York, on our we have a lot of acres, and we live in the middle of the woods, and there's just rust everywhere because it once was farmland. And so when he came by to talk to me, I said, when I look at these pieces of rust, they're not just rust, they make me feel like I am at home. This is the kind of rust I walk 30 feet out of my house, and I'm discovering all the time rust like this in my old farmland turned woods backyard. And he goes, oh yeah, well, my first girlfriend, she lives in the Catskill Mountains, so when I go down there, I'm always kind of collecting rust. I'm like, Catskill Mountains, where does she live? He's like, oh, it's near Roscoe, New York. I'm like, well, what's her name? And he's like, and he says her name, and I go, oh my God, she lives down the road from me. She is one of my dearest friends. And so he found that rust literally in the same woods that I live. And so I really, when I said that I felt at home, I really was at home. It was such a strange thread that you could have this connection through rust.
Right? Yeah, that is a cool way to also say that like how small the world really is when it comes to like something coincident to happen like that.
Totally, totally. It was a beautiful thing.
Exactly. Well, that's good. I'm glad that we kind of ran through the saw as much as we can because, like you were saying, I mean, you only had a certain amount of parts. I mean, you kind of were basically teaching your daughter in your film and, making sure that the tea was right, this was right. You and your husband went boarded up in the box, and there was the shot of over Emily's shoulder while you guys were, resting, preparing yourself, basically. And then, then you ended up waking up early with it. To my surprise, too, you weren't really as starving as Jeffrey's character was. So that was also like kind of like, wow, like I wonder why you weren't as affected as Jeffrey's character was when it came to the whole starvation thing. But I mean, I mean, it all depends on the person anyway. The way I kind of looked at it, I guess. And as for Alma, I mean, maybe because like you were just saying, that's probably why you were having such a hard time, uh, making sure that you got her rolled down, was because you're used to being the physical one, whereas Alma may not have been. So she would be able to preserve her energy longer, I think is
You
what I'm
know,
trying to get at.
I can make a joke about like I have a little more padding than Jeffrey does. but but I think that has to so in the scene Jeffrey's character wasn't granted the opportunity to kind of slowly ease out of the sleeping ritual. Like
Hmm.
he was basically kind of ripped from it, and he kind of forced himself. Well, I don't want to give too much away, but
No,
he really is ripped prematurely out of the hibernation. Whereas my character, that's why you find her in the bathtub. She has the luxury of being eased in the more ritualized way, and so I think that is suggested that that's helpful, and that's the way it's supposed to be done, so people don't experience what Jeffrey is going through.
you know what? Now that you said that, that does make sense too. So yeah, I'll just leave it as that. But yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I don't want to say too much more of why I say that too. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I guess Toby, to I guess move away from the song now, which for everybody that may not have seen it by now, with first off, what is wrong with you? Two, if you go to the YouTube channel Alter, it is on there. Otherwise, we have done, or I have done, a review for it, so I will plug that into the episode below, where you can also watch it on my review page as well, followed by whatever else I guess that goes down into the episode description later on. But anyway, so to get to kind of start wrapping things up just a little bit, Toby. So you know, since this is the Haunted Vermont podcasting and yada yada yada, I know I'm saying that to like the person listening. They already know where I'm going with this because of it being a default question. Yada yada. Anyway, uh, so Toby, and it comes to like the paranormal, the supernatural, or the cryptozoology in general, like let's just say for short, the supernatural universe, right? Of the
Hmm.
um, as a whole, as opinion, or maybe you could even I could even add in to kind of make it a two-part question, which is like, do you have any thoughts or opinions on it? And the other part would just be, is there any story that you could share that may have happened to you?
um well, I do make horror films, so it is something that I'm fascinated by. I love ghost stories. I love anything spooky. Um, and I guess by the sheer nature that I do make these kind of stories um, into film and writing a little bit. Uh, Means I'm open to them. I guess I'm open to certain supernatural channels in the world. I'm someone. I was just having this conversation with my daughter's boyfriend this morning. We were talking about ghosts, etc. And I was like, I can't believe that someone who is so open to these things that I've never seen one. I don't have any experiences with one. And I was almost felt like, wait, well, what's wrong with me that they're not showing themselves to me? Because sometimes I feel quite psychic, and I've had experiences that feel psychic but are not about ghosts. Um, for instance, when I was young, I would often have visions of my friends hurting themselves um, by accident. I'm not talking about self harm. And then they would, like, for instance, I'd be in science class and I'd be looking across the room at my friend Amy, and I'd be like, God, I really hope Amy doesn't hurt herself. And the next thing you know, her nose is bleeding. Or one day I was waiting for the bus and I felt like someone was going to come up and pretend to strangle me. And the next thing you know, someone comes up and jokingly puts his scarf around me, pretends to strangle me. Or a friend of mine, cuts her hand in another science class. And it's just those weird things used to happen to me. And the one that happens most recently is often I have premonitions of earthquakes and they happen. And it's so bizarre. And I don't want to cause harm to people, but all my premonitions have to do with something not so pleasant that happens. Um, but I've yet to see a ghost.
Well, I think we all can't really say we've all seen a ghost, but we've heard mysterious footsteps, we've heard disembodied voices in real time, or maybe on a recorder per se. We've heard weird knocks. I'll just say for an example, maybe like a random door just like swung open, and that you locked that door. Basically, that's what I mean. But
Yeah, that hasn't even happened so much for me. I will tell you though that I was I had the privilege of helping my mom, basically being the person who helped usher her into death when she was
oh
dying, and I was the only person there with her when she died, and it was a very, very poignant um moment. I won't go into incredible detail about it, but it's I look at it as a gift now, but at the time it was um it kind of blew me away how powerful that was. And at the very moment she died, and my mom was not a strong woman, especially when she was incredibly feeble the last month of her death. She squeezed my hand. I thought my bones were going to break, and that for me was the most powerful supernatural feeling experience I've ever had. At the moment of death, it's almost like she channeled all of her life and love through her feeble, bony hand into mine, and it was really beautiful.
yeah, I sort of know that from my grandmother that passed away back in 2004. So same thing. She kind of gave me, I guess I'll just say, almost like the grip of death. Like basically, like so tight, like you're saying, breaking my bones. Like I
Oh,
still remember that. So yeah, but that's interesting that you bring that up because Emily mentioned that to me as well during the podcast, and now this is where I'm gonna counteract questions with you, kind of similar to Emily, and we'll see how you respond. So, ever since that has happened, Toby, have you experience like any smells that remind you of her, like something like a perfume, like maybe her like your mother's favorite flower, like anything that all of a sudden you just took a whiff and there was a smell that you were so familiarized with.
um, not smells. Um, Maybe it's more words because my mom was a word lover. So sometimes I feel like words drop into my lap, like into my ears, or someone will say something, or I'll read something words that are not the most frequently heard words. Like my mom loved the word gladsome. Who
Hmm.
hears the word gladsome often? Not much. Every now and then, that word will just kind of pop into my head, or I think I'm hearing it. And so for me, it's more words. And then in terms of my dad, who died um, 21 years ago, uh, he for him, it's more like nature. I have this thing where if a leaf falls on my head, that's my
Hmm.
dad showing me his love. And so when leaves uh just randomly fall from a tree and smack me right in the head, for me that's a message from my dad.
Yep, that could very well be. But to go back to like what you were saying, hearing a voice that, or just or specific word that is actually a sign as well that your mother is with you too. Just so you know. So, I mean, just those little things alone are just signs to let you know that your parents are still watching over you. I just wanted to just throw that out there.
Well,
You people may not know that, but yeah, that is a common thing when it comes to loved ones that pass on. That's why I was trying to start with smell and then work my way. But uh, another thing too is like like dreams or repeating numbers or symbols, or in this case, words. You just said there's specific words that keep repeating that seem to just be placed inside of you, like you're hearing them. So again, that's a sign. Another thing is like the presence of of a a bird. What is it? A cardinal, I think. I think it's a cardinal. I think the cardinal pretty much represents that one of your loved ones is watching over you, especially if they come close or if they fly close to you than no other bird really would. Like that's another sign.
oh yeah, I really, I believe you because, I feel birds are very intuitive animals, and I'm always watching them, and I know that, in some of our work, our work in our film work, we incorporate birds as psychopomps. They're symbols of psychopomps, like other supernatural creatures or gods and goddesses, as psychopomps mean something that helps usher the living into death, like sort of crossing that bridge. And so
Right.
yeah, birds are very, I think, I agree with you, they're super symbolic. Whenever I get up close to one, there's an owl that lives near us, I always feel like I'm having a religious experience. And of course, when you watch things like groups of birds, like murmurations, um, they're they're just in yeah, they're incredibly intuitive creatures, and if you think about it, their point of view, being able to fly in the sky and have that aerial perception of us down below, they're so much more omniscient than we are.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the problem though with humanity. Well, maybe some, I should say. I'll just say that. Like people like us when we're kind of really digging into this type of subject or whatever, like we kind of look outside the box. Let's just put it that way. And I think that would be the correct way of putting it. But like with other folks, they just look at it and look at we could just say, well, this keeps showing up. Right, that's like a sign. It's a miracle. It's not a coincidence. And then you got somebody that might be like, oh, sure it is. It's like, right. Like how many times can this happen before you say like, no, this is not a coincidence anymore? you know.
Yeah.
That might be a bad example, but it's just another way of looking at perspective of like you got to really think outside the box of the what if.
Why not? You know?
Yeah, exactly. Why not? um, but yeah, let's see. Like I lost my dad in 2003, and there was a couple times where I felt during the night like I heard my dad's voice say hello to me, and I like woke up out of a dead sleep or something like that, and it was
Uh,
weird. But and then like I swear I could smell like cigars, or yeah, the cigars that my dad used to smell, which were like white owl cigars, which I don't even think you can find those anymore. And I don't think so, but I could be wrong. But I do remember white owls. That's what brand he used to smoke for cigars. But yeah, I mean, I've always been fascinated with trying to learn more and stuff like that. And as I, you know, been doing this for almost 13 years, you kind of want to take in every bit of information you possibly can. So the fact that smells is something, animals could be something, numbers, whatever. Like another thing that I can share that I haven't really talked about it yet because it's still like fresh in me, but like back in 2022, I lost my best friend around my age at the time, And so a year later, after he had died, I for some reason decided I wanted to look up to see like what his animal would have been, and his animal was a rabbit. And what was interesting is when it came down to um, around his birthday month, all I could see was rabbit and
Oh,
rabbit.
wow.
So I kind of took that as a sign, and I said, "I see you're watching me. I'm okay. Go watch your family because I think you should go make sure they're okay too." So,
Oh,
but
I'm so sorry that you lost your friend, but what a beautiful visitation. Wow.
yeah, like it almost seemed like every day I was seeing a rabbit just casually doing its thing and everything else, whether it be around where I am right now or at work. There was always a sign of a rabbit. So it was very interesting. But yeah,
And
that I mean, is that a coincidence though? I mean, I don't know.
yeah, and why not like how beautiful that you can take meaning from it. I mean, you won't know, how can you even know whether it's a coincidence or not, but how beautiful that you can find meaning in it so that no matter what it is, whatever way, whatever the truth is, it doesn't matter because you gain something beautiful from that visitation. And I love that you're open to that. How fortunate that you can receive it that way.
Well, I mean, I guess, like I said, I mean, as much as I've kind of been doing this and stuff, I mean, I don't really call myself a skeptic anymore when it comes to the paranormal stuff. I'm more skeptic when it comes to the cryptozoology. Like it doesn't mean that I won't tell you that you did not see a Bigfoot, but I would like to see it for my own sake, and then that will push me over the edge. I mean, I don't need to know that they're the paranormal world anymore, but like just to see like a Bigfoot or whatever that's out there, I mean that would fully turn me out of skeptic completely. But I mean, I'm trying to figure out why I'm still skeptic about cryptids if I'm not skeptic about ghosts. But it's just, I think it's because of even the people that I listen to on the podcast that I listen to. It's like, that's just not supposed to be real. It's not supposed to be out there, and it is, and it's just like, well, then yeah, it's like, well, then if that's the case, where did they come from? Which I completely 100% agree. If there's a Bigfoot and this and that out there, or Dogman or whatever, it's like, it's like, how can something like that exist? I guess is where my skepticism comes into play.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, don't you have a lot, you have some really neat yeah, ones up there that I don't know much about, but I've kind of heard of like what is like the pigman, obviously champ in the
yeah,
lake.
champ. Yep.
What but isn't there something like a slippery man or slippery skin or something?
Oh,
Um,
yeah, I know what you're talking about. Slippery. Oh man, hang on. Let me pull that up real quick. I know what you're talking about too. Uh, Slippery. Oh, maybe I don't have it right here on me. Slippery. Oh, here it is. Yeah, old slippery skin. Yeah, apparently it's like a bear. Apparently.
huh, that's
Yep.
neat. We have a lot of those.
Yeah, I forget the story exactly about slippery skin. I think it's memory serves me right. It's like basically in a elusive bear where you can kind of shoot at it and it just slips away or something like that. I think that's how it
Oh,
goes. I forget exactly. Don't quote me on that. But yeah, you're right about Pigman. It's the Northfield Pigman, and
yeah,
then you got Champ from Lake Champlain, which is
right.
basically our Loch Ness monster. So yeah,
Yeah. Those are the only ones I've heard of. Yeah.
yeah. We also have uh, a water witch known from the Woodbury Lake, I guess. Which I've got to look more into that one, but yeah, there's a lot of interesting,
Nice.
weird weird cryptids around Vermont for sure.
Well, again, because you guys are one of the coolest states, perhaps the coolest state. I mean, I think the fact that it was the first state to abolish slavery is pretty neat. So
That is true,
you have a good karma.
right? Well, I just learned too, like a little bit more. A couple years ago, I learned about the only witch trial that happened in Vermont, and the outcome was good. I remember when I was doing a video for it for my Haunted Vermont channel. I basically, because it happened after Salem, I was just like, well, we probably took notes from Salem because what we did was probably more common sense than like what happened in Salem, which was we actually saved the person that was about to drown.
Wow, what a
Yeah,
great story! That's really cool.
yeah, and yeah, she was accused of of killing her husband. Well, go figure. And she was trialed by the Duncan chair or something like that. I think is what it was in a river, and she was down in the water for so long that she wasn't obviously coming back up. So yeah, they dived into the cold river at the time during the winter month of whatever month it was, and they literally brought her back out from the river before she drowned.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
So
that's neat.
yeah, and what's fascinating is that like she was basically on the border of Vermont and Massachusetts. So she ended up being buried over in the Massachusetts end, which I ended up going to her family plot and finding her family plot and showing the plot on video and took my own pictures and stuff because I wanted to pay her my respect too.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, and stuff like that. So I mean, I mean, it's just who I am. I like right now. I'm trying to track down some information about this lady. I just don't want to reveal too much because everybody knows who I'm talking about. But I'm trying to also see if there's any more information out there before I just blurb out everything too that I'm looking at too. But it's another interesting story too that has happened in the past. So, but yeah, I'll keep that under wraps for right now. But yeah, but Toby, just like I mean, I guess what you could say when it comes to death and why I look at things like that too, like when it came to like my friend passing and with the rabbit and stuff, I think it's just because when I was younger, like I had a grandfather and an uncle pretty much die like 24 hours apart, and the weird part was both of them were in the same hospital room. So
Mm.
that had to have been, um, man, I don't even know a good word to this. Like when one died, it's like Jesus. Like, like what was my uncle thinking? Like when he learned that, you know, um, my grandfather wasn't gonna be coming back into the room anymore. So he was there for the next 24 hours before he went. Is what I
Wow.
guess is what I'm trying to get at. So, that was mainly like the first time that I kind of got to learn what exactly death is in the world. And from there, the rest is history. But yeah, you could say death has kind of opened my mind. And then when I learned that there's possibly like an afterlife with the paranormal realm, that's really where it came to my interest when I was young, because it's like, well, what if there is more to life or than life afterwards? So that's kind of where it all began as well.
Ah.
Yeah.
It's such a it's a subject that never loses fascination. Oh, sorry, a very loud car. Um, uh, I appreciate the mystery. That's all I can say. I do.
Yeah, exactly. Will we have all the answers? No, 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 we won't.
Thankfully.
But yeah, um, yeah. So Toby, to wrap things up after all that, and I apologize for my little tangent there,
No,
but
I
uh,
loved hearing about it.
good. So I get Toby to wrap things up because I don't want to take any more time too. Because as you were saying, off the air, and I'll kind of, or yeah, off the air, I'll just say like, I want to let you have family time too. But so for anybody that is curious about like, your works and stuff, I know you already mentioned the Wonder Wheel and stuff, but where else can people keep up to date with you if you'd
Yeah,
like them to?
our website is Wonder Wheel Productions, which has information on all of our feature films, and we also have a band called Hellbender, but the E's are sixes. That music is on Spotify, and we use a lot of the music in our films. It's kind of like sometimes it's a little between like ethereal and metal, I guess. Sometimes a little
Nice.
poppy, and then but yeah, wonderwheelproductions.com, and then on Instagram we're adams.family.films, and information is always on there about what we're up to or what we've been up to.
Wow. Well, it sounds like you've definitely been busy and you stayed busy, which is always good. So yeah, I mean, um, that's amazing. I'm gonna now have to check out your Hellbender now because that's awesome.
Oh, please do. Yeah, it's on either like Spotify or iTunes or Bandcamp. It's fun.
Oh yeah, yeah. I love Bandcamp too. So perfect. Um, yeah. So again, Toby, I mean, I feel like before I just start beating a dead horse with a bat or something, I'll just say thank you for your time, and I'm looking forward to your future stuff. And maybe if you do more Vermont related legends or whatever, I'll be happy to have you back on to share your experience within that realm of whatever chaoticness comes out of it, I guess.
I'd love that, and I hope that happens because I really dig Vermont. And thank you so much, Paul. I really appreciate this, and I really enjoyed talking to you.
Well, awesome. I enjoyed my time talking with you too, Toby. And for everybody else, you know the drill. Keep your eyes open because you just never know if an apparition will appear in front of you.